Sound matters. Be heard. Welcome to the podcast where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes tips to make your own show sound truly spectacular. This is Podtastic Audio.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing today? Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Chris, and I am from the Chris and Christine Show podcast. You can find out every single thing you want to know about that show if you decide to look it up on the old interweb at chrisandchristineshow.com, and there will be a link to that into the show notes of this episode, so don't you even worry about a single little thing. So here on Podtastic Audio, where I help you design and create your amazing podcast, the podcast you always wanted, without having to figure out all the technical terms and how to figure out all kinds of gear and equipment you might have to buy. Don't you worry, you're not going to need any of that junk anyways. So put your money back in your wallet and let's create an amazing podcast from the start. So speaking of starting your podcast, this intro, I've actually redesigned it, probably like episode 3 or 4. I redesigned the intro to this show. And as I get closer to the 100th episode of Podtastic Audio, I am going to do a full-on brand new redesign of the show intro. Now, I haven't quite decided on what I'm going to do for the intro, because the thing about Podtastic Audio is that I've always tried to keep it very simple. Like every single thing that I do on here, I make it very easy for pretty much anybody with any budget to replicate and do for yourself. Like I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm going to hire some fancy voiceover artist like Morgan Freeman is going to be here doing my voiceover work for me, live in the studio. Most people aren't going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I know you're not going to do that either. So I don't know if I want to go with a voice actor to do my intro, or maybe I'll do it myself. I really haven't decided how I'm going to do it, but I think I want to do a whole new redesign for the intro. And I did the intro redesign for the Chris and Christine Show right around the 100th episode. So it got me thinking that now I'm getting to 100 episodes here, that maybe I want to do a full-on redesign here too. And your podcast, you can change it however you want, whenever you want. It's not set in stone. So if you want to change the entire name, the logo, the intro, even the host or co-host or whatever you want to do, you can feel free to change your podcast out at any single time you want. And remember, it's your show. Have fun. Don't let me or anybody else tell you how to run your podcast. Do what works for you and which you can replicate fairly easily each episode. Like if each episode is extremely hard for you to create an episode, oh no, what am I going to do this week? Or it's a task, or if you have to sit down and you crack open the microphone and you're thinking, the first thing you say is hey, oh gosh, I don't want to be here. And you're thinking about doing other things. Well, maybe podcasting really isn't a thing for you, or maybe the content that you're trying to deliver isn't something you care about. That's the thing too. If you don't care about your content, then the listener doesn't care about your content, and your numbers are obviously going to show that because no one's going to care. You have to show a little enthusiasm about the stuff you're talking about. You have to care about it enough. You have to make me believe that what you're saying you love, and you want me to love it because you're saying it and you're excited to share it. So hopefully by episode 100, I will have a brand new intro all set up and ready to go. It's probably going to be very similar to the original intro, but I'll add a few different things, or maybe I'll change a few things. Like I said, I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do, but no matter what I'm going to focus on having fun with the podcast, because if you're not having any fun, then none of this stuff even makes a single difference. So today on Podtastic Audio, I want to talk about a few things. When it comes to podcasting, I think a lot of people always assume that they have to do an interview show for their podcast, especially if you're doing solo episodes like I'm doing right now. And I know it's not easy to just talk into a microphone by yourself, talking into the wall like I'm doing right now. I'm just imagining that you are right over there and I'm talking to you. That's probably how I do a podcast by myself. Or if you can't do that, you can just write a script out. You can read your script onto your podcast. But when you do that, make sure that you don't sound like you're reading. If you sound like you're reading and it's that very monotone, basic, no inflections, no change in tone at all, or anything like that, and it sounds like you're just reading a paper, it doesn't sound very exciting to the listener. You got to remember, the listener is listening to your show, and you have to kind of put yourself in the mind of your listener and kind of experience it through their ears. What do they hear? What do they get out of it? So I know people that do solo shows like this one, what usually happens is that you will have a guest or guest interviews on your podcast. It seems like everybody who does a solo show seems like they always have a guest on their show at some point. Even ones that do it for a while without a guest, eventually, they'll have a guest on their show. So I know there's a million different ways to do a podcast. There's a million different ways to have a guest show up on your show. You can have them live in person in the same room with you, which is probably like the best way to do a podcast if you're going to have a guest on, because you have that in-person response and chemistry going on back and forth in the same room. Like I've done in-person interviews before, and they're way better than anything that's done remotely, even if it's like a Zoom call where you can physically see somebody. But the internet sometimes craps out, or there's an audio delay of some sort sometimes where like you're talking and they respond to something you said a couple beats ago, but you're already still talking. So it kind of overlaps a little bit. That can be very frustrating too. So when it comes to podcast interviews or any kind of remote interviews like this, there's one method that everybody says is like the best, hands down, the most reliable, good old faithful, and that is the double ender. Now you're thinking, Chris, you're getting kinky on me. What's this double ender you're talking about here? Well, when it comes to podcasting, the double ender has been around since probably before podcasting. It's a very easy and simple concept to do, but not everybody can actually do a double ender or even know how to do a double ender correctly. So if you're going to have somebody on your show as a guest and you want to do a double ender for the recording, make sure that they know what a double ender is and how to even pull it off. So if you're not really sure what a double ender is, let me explain to you. It requires both people or all people that are on the call or in the conversation to be able to physically record their side of the conversation on their own end, which would require them to have a decent microphone, a decent audio recorder of some kind. It can be a computer. You can record directly into Audacity or any kind of recording platform that you choose. You can record your side into there, or you can record your side into a interface that has a recorder like this Rodecaster does, or maybe a Zoom PodTrack P4. You can record directly into that. You connect to the person on the other end any way you want. It could be by Zoom. It can be by FaceTime. It can be a good old-fashioned telephone call. It doesn't matter because you're not recording that. What you're recording is only yourself. So each person at the call makes a recording, an audio recording of their own self on their side of the conversation. Then, after everybody records and saves their own audio, your audio is always going to sound better when it's recorded directly into your computer, directly, not going through any kind of processing, not going over the web, not going anywhere where things can get screwed up. Direct. The cleanest, purest sound possible. And that's why so many people, they love the double enders, because it gives the most purest, cleanest signal of your audio, of everybody's audio who's on the call. Now, the problem with doing a double ender with somebody who doesn't know how to do a double ender is, what if they forgot to hit record on their end? Oh, didn't think about that. What if they don't know how to record their own self on the microphone? What if they don't know how to do that? And then also, it also requires them or anybody or everybody to email the files to you. You want to make sure that they recorded their files in the proper file format. If they're saving it in an MP3 and sending it over to you as an MP3, that's great and all, but you really want an uncompressed original audio file, like a WAV file or an AAC file. That's what you really want them to send that over. Now, how do you send that over when those files are so massive you can't send them via email? So you have to set up a Dropbox or a Google Drive thing or some kind of file share. There's a few places out there, some kind of file share platform, and everybody has to be on board. Everybody has to know what they're doing in order to pull off a double ender. So I would not recommend doing a double ender with anybody that does not know how to do it. Most of your guests, I guarantee, unless they're podcasters, or even then, if they're seasoned podcasters that have been doing it for a while, they may not even know how to do it or what you're even talking about. Double ender, you're going to try and come on to me with this stuff? Can you save your double ender to somebody else? I just want to record and go, So most people don't even do a double ender. I don't do double enders. I use clean feed, which sounds just as good as a double ender. And I know there are some glitches and some problems down the line and all that kind of stuff. But what if your guest that you want to have on your show doesn't even have a microphone? They may just have a laptop and they say, well, that's all I'm going to do because I've done a bunch of interviews and no one's ever complained before. This is the way I always do it. I just have a laptop on, my webcam on the laptop, and my audio goes through the microphone built into the laptop, and the speakers play the thing, and I do it through Zoom and whatever. Nobody has a problem. But the audio is not going to be very good. Like when we have a guest on and I try to walk them through their audio setup and I try to get them on a microphone if possible. Most people do these days, but if they don't, they don't. But I just try to tell them, listen, I'm going to try to make sure that you sound the best you possibly can. Because if you don't sound good and this podcast goes live with your crappy audio on your end, because I warned you, I said, come with some good gear, I'm trying to make sure you sound good. Oh, I don't want to sound good. But if they don't sound good and they actually hear the podcast episode and they sound like crap, do you think they're going to promote the episode? Yeah, probably not. They're probably not going to promote it at all because they're like, I sound like garbage. Why didn't you fix that? And you say, well, dude, I told you if you came in here on a cell phone from like the other room and it sounded like on speakerphone, it's going to sound like crap. And there's only so much I can do to fix that. I know there's tools. I know there's plugins. And I know there's things that can help fix that. But like I've always said, I can take bad audio and make it sound decent, but I cannot make bad audio sound great. It's impossible. So now you're going from bad to can we understand them? And is this at least listenable to get through the episode? That's basically what I want to do. And I know some guests are very difficult and they don't want to listen and they just want to come in because they're some A-lister or even a C-lister, not even an E-lister maybe, and they think they're hot stuff and they can just walk in and walk out and they don't even care. But, you got to deal with those people as they come to you. So one easy and very cheap solution to getting really good audio from your podcast guests, I should say remote podcast guests, is, well, why don't you buy them a microphone and send it to them? Chris, what do you think? I made of money? Buying guest microphones and sending it to them? That's going to be super expensive. Why would you even do that? Why don't I just fly them in personally to the studio on my private jet while I'm at it, Chris? Why don't I just do that, huh? Well, let me tell you something. The Chris and Christine Show started off with basic USB microphones. In fact, I've got Amazon pulled up right now, and I'm looking right at the microphone that we started with. It was the fine USB microphone. It is the K668 microphone. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Don't you worry. But the reason why I bring this up is because most people, like myself, are an Amazon Prime user, which means anywhere in the continental United States, as far as I know, I get free shipping. So I can ship things from Amazon directly to, say, you, the guest, who doesn't have a microphone. I can send you this microphone. It's a USB microphone, which pretty much works on any laptop, Mac, Windows, whatever. You plug it in, it's ready to go. Very easy. The sound quality, listen, it's not going to be the best. It's not going to sound as great as the microphone I have today. I mean, obviously, I'm running through a Rodecaster Pro, and they got the pod mics and all that great stuff. But it's going to be light years difference compared to like a laptop webcam microphone, or even a webcam thing that's 5 feet away from the guest and they're talking into it 5 feet away and has an echoey sound or whatever. Now, I think according to FineFine's website, they killed this microphone off a while ago because I cannot find it on their website, but I did find it on Amazon. Now, it is extremely cheap right now. And when I say cheap, it is literally almost the price of lunch is what the microphone costs. It is on sale right now as I'm looking at this for $14.95 US dollars. $15 for a microphone with free shipping because it's under Prime. Free shipping. Send this thing out. So $15, which is about the price of lunch some places. You could send your guest this microphone and then let them keep it as like a souvenir for coming on the podcast. Like, here, keep this microphone. We don't even care. Ship it directly to them through your Amazon. $15. I think most of us can afford $15, especially if you want to have this guest on your show and you know they got no equipment or no gear. They just got crap junk. So it's a very easy way to have a guest sound amazing on your podcast. So here's what I'm going to do. We actually sent this microphone out to a guest. It was a friend of ours. She was not in the same room with us. She was home at her place. She does not know anything about podcasting, has never been on a podcast before, and she is from Europe. So English is not her first language. She got all those things working against her. So I'm going to play a sample of our audio episode of the Chris and Christine show when we had her on as a guest using the K668 microphone from her laptop at her house without ever having used a microphone like this before or even being on a podcast before. So here is that clip.
During high school, we would get on a bus and at nighttime to just wake up in Paris to shop all day and come back. And I'm saying that because it was a breeze. We were able to simply get on a bus, drive over the border. We were sleeping at night and we would wake up in Paris. One of my favorite times, actually.
So as you can tell, it doesn't sound that bad. I mean, there's a slight echo to her voice, but that's okay. It would happen with pretty much anybody. I'm hearing a slight echo right now in this room just because the way the room is. It's not padded or anything. So if you want to have a great sounding podcast guest, just offer them this microphone. Tell them I will buy you a microphone and send it to you for the interview. You get to keep it as a souvenir. Tell them they can keep it for other guest interviews they might do in the future. Because I think once you do one, you can do more and make it super, super easy. And especially if you are a guest going on shows and you sound great, the podcaster is going to love you. He's going to recommend other shows to go on. And if you're promoting something like a book or a course or whatever it possibly could be, the sky's the limit. It's up to you, really. You're actually going to help them out. And by helping them out, they will help you out. And they'll be more willing to actually share and promote the episode if it sounds great. Now, if your audio sounds bad, or if your guest that comes on sounds bad, they're probably not going to promote it. And if they do promote it, it's going to make them look bad because the people listening are going to be like, ugh, that's what you sound like? Horrible. And I know you're going to say, but the content, Chris, it's all about the content. Content can only go so far. With bad audio, content doesn't make a difference. It could be the best thing in the world, but if it sounds like crap and I have to crank it up and crank it down and crank it up, or I'm like really focusing really hard to really understand what they're saying, then it doesn't matter and someone's just going to turn it off anyways. Your audience is listening. Give them something to listen to and make sure they can hear it. That's what it's all about. So I want to say thank you once again for joining me here on Podtastic Audio. If you want to find out everything about this show, of course, you go to podtasticaudio.com. And if you're thinking about starting a podcast and you're like, I don't know what to do or how to do it or how to press record or that stuff, don't you even worry. I got you all hooked up here at podtasticaudio.com/easy, where we will schedule a call, set up your podcast, get everything figured out, and I will physically hold your hand during the entire recording. I'll record everything for you here in the sound booth, and you just be out there on the floor in the presenter stage, and you will talk and do your thing, and I will sit and record it all and edit everything, and then I will put it up for your podcast all easy peasy. That's why I like to call it podcasting made easy. Like, I don't think it gets any easier than that. So if you want to do that, hit me up, and you keep on making your amazing podcast with your amazing audio, and I'll catch you next time.